Southern Cameroonians, my dear fellow brothers and sisters of Amazonia, or let me put it as I always like to say, that dear people of the once independent Southern Cameroons, also known as Amazonia, I bring you revolutionary greetings this day, the 3rd of April, in the year of our Lord 2020. I have a few issues to point out here before I get into the subject matter of our discussion for today. And a few things I have to point out here. Let me begin by delving first into the campaign to fight against the spread of the coronavirus pandemic, specifically in the southern Cameroons. I'm convinced that you have listened to a lot of messages from various stakeholders in this liberation movement. I know you have watched some on screen, and I'm convinced that at this point in time, a good lot of us already know how serious this coronavirus is. I'm sure a lot of us know by now that this thing is not a joke and that no one at all, should take it as such. My dear people, I want to once more here reiterate that this fight is one that has to be taken all the way until this pandemic is defeated across the world. There are no half measures to be taken anywhere. We don't have to lay down our guard. You have heard about the struggles by some of the biggest countries in the world, the United States, France, Spain, Italy, and others, to acquire protective masks because these masks have become extremely scarce and the battle to get them is really rude. And now when you look at the situation in the southern Cameroons, with our suffering masses and even the difficulties of access, you understand that the situation gets even more compounded. It is the same thing with hand sanitizers and the detergents. This is why, at the level of the consortium, we opted for a local solution. We opted to look for ways and means of empowering the people to produce in clusters their own protective masks, to empower the people to produce in clusters and even in their various homes their own hand sanitizers. That is why our teams continue to trek from locality to locality within the various LGS, both in the northern and the southern zones, to continue to train people on how to do some of these things, especially with producing hand sanitizers locally. We have also engaged a technique of letting people take other preventive measures that are proving very successful. This far, we have had just one case on record, unless the statistics have changed since a lot of things are happening so fast these days in all of the southern Cameroons, and that was in the southern zone. In the northern zone, we are yet to get reports of any case, and we want the situation to stay like this. We don't want any changes at all in the negative direction. That is why we are taking all the measures. That is why we are leading this sensitization campaign so seriously to make sure our people stay safe. But most especially, you remember, the take-home message would always be stay home, stay safe, stay alive. And then that said, I read a very preposterous release from someone. It's just signed but unnamed, calling himself the city mayor for Bamenda. And he asked the people to stay home on this Friday, that the markets were going to be closed and then they will be sprayed. And then, surprisingly again, he says on Monday, all the traders should come and be before their shops because they will need to meet them there to spray. So I wonder why they should close the markets on Friday to spray. And on Monday, the traders should come there. Do they want to spray the traders themselves? Or it's an attempt to contaminate our people who are this far free from the virus? My dear brothers and sisters, I'd like to let you know, stay clear of all these stupid maneuvers. I know Mr. Achobang Paul. Mr. Achobang Paul is a contractor. I think that is what he knew how to do best. No, he was the director general of a company called systems engineering. And I think it is important for him to continue to run his business and leave the people of Bamenda alone. Last I checked, the people of Bamenda did not participate at any elections. Consequently, we don't have any mayor in Bamenda at all. We have no mayor in Bamenda. So whatever impostor is loitering around and calling himself mayor can go and serve Mr. Tanga Ponji and all those who have placed him there. The people of Bamenda would not want to have any of it. And we have had so many provocations to the point where we don't think that there is any more provocation now that is necessary, specifically not at this point when the people are battling a very delicate scourge added to a genocidal war being unleashed on us by the troops of Mr. Paul Biya from Yaounde. My people, stay clear, stay safe, and stay alive. That said, I've also been watching and reading a lot of literature referring to some plans by some researchers across the world to test a coronavirus, or rather a vaccine against the coronavirus in Africa. My dear people of the southern Cameroons, to the best of my knowledge, there is no vaccine this far that has reached testable level. And we are all seeing, the figures are clear and speak for themselves, that the scourge of the coronavirus is much with us here in the West than it is in Africa. I think that the place where people are dying in serious numbers now would be Italy. After that, you go to Spain, you go to France, you come to the United States, you go to China and all of those places. If there is any need to test any virus, they should test this virus, to test any vaccines. They should test this vaccine in those places. And when the vaccines work on the people in those places, and we ever deem it necessary in Africa or in the southern Cameroon to take those vaccines, that will be the time that we will talk about it. Don't fall prey to any such thing, because too often they have taken advantage of the rampant poverty of our people and the ignorance of a lot to deceive people into accepting that vaccines be tested on them, when in effect they are not going to be the beneficiaries of these vaccines. We are not guinea pigs. We are not guinea pigs. Be careful and stay strong. I know that the World Health Organization continues to give directives on exactly what has to be done. Those are the directives we should stay glued to. And as for vaccines, please don't fall into any trap of receiving any kind of poison in your system in the name of vaccine. That one is clear. And I think we should all take our distance as far as that is concerned. That said, I want to move now on to another interesting subject matter. And this, I'll be very quick because that is not the main topic for discussion today. And by the way, before I close this subject matter, I'm still calling on our very generous people on the south of the Southern Cameroons to help us continue to finance these teams of people that continue to do a lot of this social work on the ground, meeting our communities wherever. A lot of these people, these teams, they trek. There is no room to even use bikes in a lot of places because the use of motorbikes and all whatnot has proven very dangerous, with security operatives systematically mistaking, that is confusing, these civil society volunteers for self-defense volunteers. And sometimes they've had to open fire on some of our people who are just going about trying to help the civilians in the various communities. These are the dangers that they put their lives to as they go about trying to sensitize our people, and this time concerning the coronavirus. My dear brothers and sisters, if this touches your heart, make a donation today to assist these people do their job better. Thank you. That said, I want to make a little break on one subject matter that is really, really important to all of us. This thing has been eating me so deep in the marrows in my heart. My dear people, someone sent to me a write-up written by one Dr. Mo Takwi, who should be in Kondengi at this point in time. You know, he's one of our prisoners of conscience. And when I looked through that very, very long write-up, I was worried, I was disturbed, I was embarrassed. And I asked myself a simple question. Why do we spend so much time fighting trivialities? When I looked at that write-up by Motakwe, and I think that's about the third or fourth that is sending out of Kondengi, targeting his fellow inmates. And all of these things, I must say it and say it triumphantly, are being engineered by those of us who are free outside here, who have never had the opportunity to test detention just for one day. I mean for one day. If you have ever been detained, like some of us have been, just for one day, you understand what it means to be inside there without hope. You understand what it means to be inside those kind of incarceration centers. And rather than get soothing messages, rather than get encouraging messages from people outside, you are being chastised on a daily basis. You are being demonized on a daily basis. And that we have people in a dungeon who from the point go were all united in their resolve, and we saw it. That rather than supporting and encouraging them to remain very tightly knit, to remain united and strong, because together as one body, they will be able to overcome their burdens. It is the Shakespeare and other authors who say misery loves company. And I think it's even in Latin called miserere. Misery loves company. When people are in such difficult moments, what keeps them going is that they continue to encourage each other daily. My dear brothers and sisters, just look at what the coronavirus is doing. Because people have been asked to stay at home, stay at home. They are not under any detention. We are already finding it so hard just to stay inside our own houses and only turn around in our own houses or turn maybe just in the yard and go back in. It is even worse to us than some form of imprisonment. That's what we think. But just think about this and think now of people who are constrained, who are living in walls with chains and everything around those walls, and they don't have to leave from that place, and they have been there for years. And in the case of Sisiku Ayuktabe and the rest of our prisoners of war, some of them who have already been given a life jail, there is no end in sight for how long they stay inside those walls. And all we unleash on them daily is hatred. All we unleash on them daily are attacks. When I received this message, I know the comrade who sent this to me will recognize when I say this. When I received that write-up and I started reading and I got somewhere, I saw the blatant lies, a lot of blatant lies inside, because I am a living witness of some of the issues that Motakwi raised. At least he wasn't there. Comrade Tassan, who is there with them, also knows some of these things because he and I lived in the same house in Ilorin in Nigeria. He and I lived through these experiences all together. And we know a lot of these things that Motakwi said to be lies. And my reply to the comrade who sent it to me was, my brother, when I see this so much hatred, I can only recommend one thing. Why don't you people just go out there, buy poison, hire a killer, send him in Kondengi to go and poison and kill Ayuktabe so that you can have peace? Because I can't understand that people who are outside and free are feeling so insecure. Extremely insecure regarding somebody who is under incarceration. And when I read segments like his every move is geared at exchanging Ambazonia for his liberty. Oh my goodness. I talk about collusion of La République du Cameroon agents like Camto and the others. Let me tell you this. Comrade Tassang is listening to me. And I'm very convinced that Mark Barra, Tapang Ivor, and even all of those who were involved when we were fighting for the liberation of Comrades Fontem and Bala, what we were doing all of those things much of January, February of 2017, when we were all on the keyboards, they will know what I'm talking about. There were moments where we could have come out there and said, please let the whole world descend on Comrade Bala. But we all understood what happens when you are under incarceration. We understood the vulnerabilities. We understood the uncertainties. We understood the kind of crisis that turned on in your mind. And we were able to fight certain things we didn't want them to do. Calmly, in the background, behind the scenes, we fought these things and even sent out messages and all whatnot that were veiled, that were coded, but that would not expose them, but that helped us contain the situation. And in this way, we were able to do one wonderful thing. according to one very important African proverb, which says, you first of all chase away the hawk before you go blaming the mother hen for first of all wandering so far into the forest in the first place. My dear brothers, what we have to be doing as a people should be to fight as hard as possible to secure the release of our prisoners of conscience by all means. And then when they are out, we can engage in the blame game. I have said here 1,001 times that I have had my occasion to disagree with a lot of these people. And Comrade Yaounde Julius is one person I have disagreed with both publicly and privately a good lot of times. And no one is in doubt about this. So I'll be the last person to come and struggle to defend his frailties. But one thing I must let us all know is that truth is truth. Truth is absolutely unpopular. But unfortunately, it is still truth that holds the key to freedom. Sometimes when I say these things, I get amazed. When I go down to read the comments, I see some people come and call, oh, you devil, you demon in living skin, oh, you Desemba Akuro, you this agent of La République du Cameroon. I remain absolutely unmoved because I know the value of truth, that the freedom we are seeking will only be given to us through truth. We hate this truth so badly. We get so unearthed with it. It's very unpopular. A lot of us today have decided to come out here and only say the kind of things that the people want to hear, whether it will take us forward or not, simply because the people in good numbers or a few who are so loud have made truth anathema in the struggle. We must at all costs try to restore truth. And I will not let some lies be told and carried away, and then, and people take such lies away when these things can be debunked. My dear brothers and sisters, I listened, I watched, I read this whole thing, and I said, someone was made to feel that if in absentia he was made chairman of the governing council, he cannot go ahead to make himself not just president for life, but emperor of Ambazonia. Let me say this. Yaounde is not the first person in this movement who has been deified, who has been praised beyond proportion and elevated to levels where it becomes provocative for man to resist some of these things. Let me put it again clear. Once we elected Yaounde chairman of the governing council, and of course before that he was, to the best of my knowledge, one of the most humble human beings I met. And I'll come back to it. The moment he was elected, they started with titles, His Excellency. He moved here, they started red carpets everywhere, sort of things, in a revolution, in a liberation struggle. We gave all sorts of praises. When you raise people, inflate them. Why do you think that it's easy to remain the same? We deify people. We transform people into the monsters that at some point we start hating to see. It's the same thing that is going on with a lot of the people in the leadership of this movement. People are, flooded with titles here and there, flooded with all sorts of honors, flooded with all sorts of things, and you derail the attention of the people from focusing on the service they came to do. Because in this situation, anyone who sits in leadership is supposed to be a servant. When Comrade Wilfred Tassang led the struggle while we were in Nigeria as Secretary General of SCACUF, I didn't hear these titles because he personally was so conscious about the effect of such titles. Comrade Tassang, he will confess to this. And I even quarreled at some points when I wanted him to dress in certain ways before doing his video presentations. And he told me I have to fold my sleeves because we are in a struggle, because we are on the battlefield. I don't have to appear in suits and, oh no, I look so tough. John, you are defacing me. You make my people soon not recognize me. That was the mark of humility that made him remain the person he was. But as soon as I will start deifying people, giving people all sorts of titles, people are even moving, we will want to hold their umbrellas for them. They can hold their umbrellas themselves. We will want to do this for them. We want to even lie down and let them work on us, my dear brothers and sisters. And you think that you are fixing them. No. You are spoiling us. You are making it impossible for us to feel human. And consequently, when we stop feeling human and start being the something else that you have manufactured, you become the first to complain. I remember this, and I'm sure a lot of people will remember with me, that Professor Martin Ayim, who is in the Comrade Sako's faction of the IG, released something he called a prophecy somewhere in November of 2017, and he said it was a prophecy from his wife. I want to say the heights to which we could transform people. And he said that his wife had that vision. It was really absolutely a vision as he mentioned it. I'm sure someone somewhere in this movement will still have that write-up. I kept it jealously, but I lost it because I lost my tablet on a flight, in which he said that his wife had seen God show her Sisiku Ayuktabe with a big rainbow around him, with so many things. And then the message that came out from God to her to be dished out to the people of the Southern Cameroons was, this Sisiku Ayuktabe is the chosen one, is the one I have picked to lead you people to freedom. You must work with him. You must obey his every instruction. And if anyone goes against him, if anyone opposes him, God will deal with him. I have not forgotten. And I'm sure some people who keep archives in this movement should have that prophecy. If you have it, circulate it to the people of the Southern Cameroon Sea. Because the same Professor Ayim today, when he opens his mouth and talks about Sisiku Ayuktabe, you think it's a piece of excrement. We have turned this movement to be this way. My dear brothers and sisters, to say the truth, Comrade Cornelius Kwanga never fabricated Sisiku Ayuktabe to impose on the people of the Southern Cameroons. No. I will quote some people who are alive and free, and they're in places where they will not be afraid to be quoted. That by the time we were going to Conclave 3, that was in Canaan land, the outskirts of Lagos in Nigeria, I was in the United States of America. I had come away from Nigeria to the United States of America to meet other comrades, and with Comrades Alex Mbianda, with Princess Harriet Fomoki, and with Comrade Tabon Kima. The four of us, we were led by the Foley Hawk law firm to have some very important meetings at the State Department, where we were received by very high personalities at the State Department. And eventually, we went and also had receptions with some key diplomatic missions in New York. And at the end of this, I had to hurry back to Nigeria because of Conclave 3. And so when I got to Nigeria, and I went and met Comrade Tassan already at the venue of the conclave, because I arrived a day after the night when registrations and presentations were already taking place. I, like many others who came in, went in with the notion that we were going to continue to throw our support behind Comrade Tassan to empower him to continue to lead the movement forward. Of course, a lot of people believed that he held at least the mantle to be able to continue to conduct the affairs of the movement. And when I got to the scene, a lot of those who came shared the same idea like myself. After deliberations of the first day, I went out to have lunch. In my company were Pastor Chebine Napoleon, who was in Canada. There was Success Nkongo, who was then, passing around like someone so committed to our quest for freedom. There was Pastor Tango Monkem Daniel, who is in Dallas, in the United States of America. So these three people, added to myself, we were four. And eventually, we were joined by Fondo, who I guess became a spokesperson for Europe of the Governing Council or of the IG. While we had this launch, a discussion came up. We said now that they are going to change the SCACUF structure to something else and we're going to carry out elections. Who are we going to throw our support behind? And of course, unanimously, all of us said, of course, Paratasan, there was no issue about that. And now we said, and there's going to be a deputy this time. So who do we think will be a deputy? And people were looking around, and then Barakuro, speaking here, I suggested Siseko Julius Ayuktabe. These guys, with the exception of Success in Congo, because Congo had left us briefly when this conversation came up. I suggested Siseko Ayuktabe. These guys, none of them knew him. None of them had ever heard that name. None of them ever met him. I told them, this gentleman, I'm calling his name because I've been going to Abuja for meetings with Comrade Tassang. And each time we got there, this Siseko Ayuktabe, who at that time was a spokesman for Singa, Nigeria, that's Southern Cameroonians in Nigeria, would go out there, arrange media outings for Comrade Tassang with various radio and TV stations. And when we arrived, he would drive with his car, come pick up Comrade Tassang to those places for him to go sit there and wait for him to finish the interviews, bring him back, come pick us up. Everyone will go together. Sometimes he will not even have time because of the demanding nature of his job. He'll go drop us, we'll be having lunch, and then later, I mean, the degree of cooperation and collaboration I saw between the two people informed me that if this pair go to work together, it's going to be so beneficial for Southern Cameroons. So I proposed to this, and I told them this story, and I explained this to them. These people are all free, and they're out in the West, and they can talk. They can gainsay me if I'm lying. And so that is how, when we arrived, I now moved from table to table. And I remember one other person I spoke to was Mr. Fonjon Callistos, who is in the United Kingdom, and Mr. Rofo Stakan, who is in Boston, that I approached to talk to me about Siseko Ayuktabe. None of them knew him. And then eventually, we all felt, no, it could make sense for us to have him as deputy. And then the only person that I met to talk to, Dr. Ndoche Fidelis, about this, and he said, well, that's you are making a lot of sense, but I think perhaps it could be the other way around. Why not Siseko? And then Tassang, I said, well, I think that Tassang is much grounded in these things. Comrade Tassang much grounded in these things. It will make sense for him to lead them. Comrade Siseko can deputize. And he said, oh, anyway, fair enough. I took this message to Pat Tassang and told him, this is what we're thinking. And that is when I picked my shock. Pat Tassang told me, John, while you were away, and I was in prayers and fasting for this conclave, I heard from my constituency. And he pointed up, said, God asked me not to lead this movement anymore. He said, I could throw my weight behind somebody else, but I should not lead anymore. So Pat Tassang embarrassed me because I was like, no, but wait a minute, what are you talking about? He said, no, I will not want to lead again. And this is the same thing he eventually said in the hall when the election started. He said, I won't be anymore. And so he told me, he asked me, but will Siseko Ayuktabe, with his schedule that we all know, will he be able to accept to pick up this challenge? I said, I don't know, but I have spoken to Mr. Ndoche, and Dr. Ndoche said he could talk to him. He said, and then I went to Barrister Bless Chufai, and as we were discussing, he said, well, I said, well, Pat Tassang says you should call Siseko Ayuktabe and talk to him. Let's see if he would accept. My dear brothers and sisters, there is no point in trying to claim that there was some serious cook-up and all not to come and impose Siseko Ayuktabe on the people of the Southern Cameroons in absentia. When Pat Tassang decided that he would not run anymore, we were virtually orphaned. There was very little time to think of any other alternatives. Siseko Ayuktabe came to mind. And trust me, if Deacon Wilfred Tassang had decided to lead again and since he was there present and had to compete against Siseko Ayuktabe, there is no way Siseko Ayuktabe could have won. I remember my brother Larry Eyong Echo stood up, swore and vowed that no one will be elected here in absentia. And the question people asked was, what alternative do you have to propose here and now? So let us stop these lies. Let us stop these fabrications. Siseko Ayuktabe definitely has his faults. Siseko Ayuktabe definitely has done things that a lot of us did not agree with, including even myself. But my dear people, there comes a time in the lives of a people, in a movement like this one, where we deliberately decide to stop every falsehood and manipulation and seek the truth so that this truth should help us to attain the freedom we so much desire. When we do this, we will be doing ourselves a service. Remember, I think that we all know none of us in this movement is a saint, not one. Even you, who spends all your time only on the keyboard and you have never spoken and nobody has ever listened to you, you are not a saint. And because we know that we are no saints, let us go and tap the wisdom that is found in the word. Recall, in the early days of the ignition of this this particular phase of this movement, the consortium that led the church all alone had one slogan that everybody could see to recognize that a document came from the consortium. And it was, God is with us. God is with us. Is that God still with us? Have we chased God away from the movement? Have we sent God far away and turned away from him and decided that we can do things our own way, like the Israelites did, and were abandoned in the wilderness for 40 more years? God is with us. And like us at this particular point in time, my dear brothers and sisters, to tap from that wisdom that is found in the Lord's Prayer. Just this line, forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Just this line. It is the wisdom in this particular line that will make it possible that even after I find myself disagreeing so bitterly with comrades Kometa and comrades Bo Herbert, and that they even had to go ahead to do a 2-hour, 26-minute program on me as an individual all alone on Ambazonia Calling, that we still have the courage to communicate with each other and find ourselves in the public space like it was before NBC and Fox News in Washington demonstrating for the freedom of Ambazonia. That I will be moving around, and because my Southern Cameroon's t-shirt, my Ambazonia t-shirt, wouldn't show out so well, Comrade Kometa will look at me and say, no, he needs a muffler to actually add up because apparently he forgot. And that I'm on the microphone, sharing the same microphone, Comrade Bo Herbert, and he'll bring that muffler and wrap around my neck. It is this, the wisdom enshrined in these lines, that can cause those kind of things to happen. It is the same kind of wisdom enshrined in this line that will cause that, despite our disagreements, our sometimes heavy bitterness, that I will find myself with Comrades Ayaba and Comrade Yerima on the same panel, educating our people against the pandemic known as the coronavirus. It is the wisdom found in these few lines that will make it possible that while I spar so bitterly with Comrade Chris Ano, who has called me names and sometimes accused me of things I know nothing of, perhaps it's even been counter accusations, but that he will have the courage to reach out to me and propose, Mr. Akuro, I want you to come on ABC television and let us talk about whether it was necessary to have an IG and about the Swiss process. And I accept. But I've just gone ahead to tell him, Comrade Chris Ano, because of what I'm going to talk next, just for a few minutes on this platform. I said, I've written to him, I said, please, let's carry this conversation to another time because we have a bigger challenge now than addressing our internal issues. But that hand of olive is informed by these lines. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. My dear brothers and sisters, this is a time we must push for general forgiveness, general understanding, and go ahead to promote a kind of unity of purpose in our movements if we must make it. The time we have all been waiting for is here. Shall we make or mar? Will we be able to rise to the occasions with the delicate moments that are presenting themselves before us? These are the questions we should ask ourselves. At this point, I'd like to take the challenge and call on some of our fathers. There are 3 of them that God has so deliberately left alive that they should be there at this point in time, perhaps to come in and play the role of the elders who will not sit quiet and watch the she-goat battle and die together. I want to call on Papa Fongoji Dinka, to call on Papa Molan Jolly Tumbe, to call on Papa Augustine Dangam. The 3 of you concert. Call your sons and daughters in the leadership. Put everyone together. Push for this forgiveness, this general forgiveness and reconciliation, so that together we should again be able to look at the future with dignity. So that together we should be able to again look at the future with hope and confidence. So that together again we can go ahead to fight relentlessly I mean relentlessly, for the release of all our prisoners of conscience, so that we can apply that African wisdom, which says you first of all chase away the hawk before you go blaming the mother hen for wandering too far into the forest in the first place. I know that if our three fathers come together and act as impartial judges and call their children together and talk to them and create this forum for people to openly confess to one another and reconcile so that we lead our people into freedom. Our people have suffered more than enough. The scourge that is coming ahead is going to be more serious. And trust me, this is the moment we have been waiting for. We will let it slip through our fingers. This is food for thought for all Southern Cameroonians. My dear people, and now let me end this conversation with the key issue that I had to talk about today. Across the Mungo, there are a lot of things brewing there. A lot of things. A lot of things. Across the Mungo, there is fire on the mountain. Across the Mungo, there is anxiety and uncertainty. Across the Mungo, there is fire burning. But make no mistake, they know, because I've listened to some of our activists go out there and say we should be getting ready to take advantage. Oh no, trust me. They are planning to unleash, the highest ever attack on our people in the days following the moment when they will have to face their own destiny. Just to see if they can subdue us completely before they turn around to face their internal problems. My dear people, this is the moment we have been waiting for. When you read in Jeune Afrique, and Jeune Afrique tells you that, oh no, Mr. Paul Biya has just gone under quarantine because he's protecting himself from the coronavirus and all whatnot, and that he actually, as soon as the outbreak was announced, he drove back home to his village in Vomeka to quarantine himself and stay there, and and has been communicating with people, receiving some few people. Tell Jeune Afrique it is a lie, and tell Jeune Afrique I said it is a lie. Because I have touched all the sources possible, and all my sources right down to Vomeka. The last time Mr. Paul Biya was seen in Vomeka was on the 8th of March, in the year of our Lord 2020. And when he returned to Yaounde on that day, he received the US ambassador on the 11th of March. And since after then, Mr. Biya has been nowhere to be found. Mr. Paul Biya has not gone back to Vomeka. Mr. Paul Biya is not in Vomeka. When you see such higher reports, it should tell you exactly what is happening. When you also see them desperately come out and broadcast stale images, claiming that those stale images are images of Mr. Paul Biya just arriving in Yaounde from Vomeka, no, there is something they are cooking, some serious acts that they are preparing to stage to deceive the people that Mr. Paul Biya is alive, sound, and strong. Don't be deceived. Don't be deceived at all. The news over in the Mongo is not good. And my dear people, I don't want to delve so much into all this. All what I want to say is, how prepared are we to face the challenges that are before us? This is the time for us to enforce rapprochement. This is the time for us to come together. This is not the time for us to go tearing ourselves apart and destroying ourselves. This is the time all our activists must come together, work in synergy. This is the time that all our activists must desist from sending out audios but to attack X or Y. Recall, when there was no internet, and we had to be sending messages where you now had the famous forwarded as received. All audios and order that came out at that time were people giving directives to our people on how to survive and stand situations. But today, 90%, or I should say 95%, of the audios that you find on social media forum are attacking A or Y. We should stop doing this. We should go back to what worked and make sure we make it work much better. I shall come back on the subject matter of what is happening across the Mongo in my next communication. So God be the glory.